right. Hello, Marlins fans. Welcome into another episode of the Miami Marlins Prospects Pod. My name is David Fernandez. I am here, as always, with Joe Frisaro from manon2nd.com. We're coming to you today, as always, on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Here you can get all sorts of great information with the Miami Heat, the Miami Dolphins, all the other teams in South Florida. And our show really focuses on what's going on, not just with the Marlins themselves, but specifically with the farm system. And we know that the Marlins have had a tough go of it here of late. So, we're starting to focus on some of these younger players and how they're sort of positioning themselves for the future. We've seen some of the prospects that we've discussed throughout the season have some real success here with the Marlins lately. But we're going to continue to unpack all of that here for you today. Joe, how you doing?
Doing great, David. Yeah, obviously we wish the big league level it was a little bit different, but we got a lot of prospect talk to do, and we're going to also talk about prospects from around the state, around the big leagues, prospects who are making it up. So it's not just going to be 100% Marlins talk, but let's start with the Marlins' best prospect who had a little bit of a setback.
Yeah.
Eury Perez, minor, I guess they're calling it minor shoulder little ailment. They say extremely precautionary innings. We're catching up to him. I think he's at 73 innings, but looks like his season could be done. But what a season, and your level of concern, David.
Yeah, so as you said, Eury is one of the top prospects in the system for the Marlins. I think Pipeline has him. He might be number 1 at this point. I'm not sure.
The Marlins, yes.
Yeah, he was number 3 earlier in the year. Made 16 starts this season. He ultimately went 3-3 with a 4.19 ERA, 102 strikeouts, 73 innings pitched, as you mentioned, 1.13 WHIP. He was removed from the game after just 1 1/3 innings last Friday due to that shoulder discomfort. And it was really his worst start. You could tell that he was bothered, particularly in that second inning when things just went sideways on him. He ended up giving up 4 hits, including 2 homers, 6 earned runs, 4 walks. He had a strikeout. He was placed on the injured list, the 7-day minor league injured list, on the 6th of August. And as you mentioned, all signs point to this potentially being the end of the season for Eury, which is obviously disappointing. We saw him in the Futures game. We know that Pensacola has a playoff berth already locked up from their performance in the first half of the season. He was getting pretty close to that innings cap, but obviously when you look at how the Marlins have handled really all of their pitching prospects, they tend to err on the side of caution. And I think that's what they're doing here with Eury. Shoulder concerns for a pitcher, that's obviously something that even when it's a minor concern, it's something that you have to keep an eye on. And he was getting close to, his innings cap for the season. And he hadn't gone more than 5 innings in a single start very often. I think he's, like I said, 16 starts. Only 4 of those this season he pitched past 5 innings. I think the most pitches he threw in a single game was 88 this year. So again, even though he just electric stuff, huge upside, he's 19 years old and he's one of the most prized prospects in really all of baseball. You have to take care of somebody like Yuri Perez. You have anything on Eury, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, just more of how you handle and manage, and just keep this in mind too, because you're seeing it at the big league level. With Sandy up to 166 innings. The Marlins continually throw him out. He seems like he goes 8 innings every game. And last night, we're recording this on Thursday morning. On Wednesday night at Philly, we saw him run into trouble in the 8th. It's just keep this in mind. Pitching is for a whole season. So when you're developing, the Marlins have plenty of first half caliber all-stars. As you're building up a kid that's 19 years old who's pitching up, he's levels higher than his age and pitching at that level, obviously knocking on the door of the big leagues. But just keep this in mind. If he's going to make that leap to the big leagues, it's going to be in a innings managed. So if you have playoff aspirations, They don't always line up because the season doesn't end after 73 innings.
Right.
When you get to the highest levels. So it's just a process of building up. I'm always concerned about injuries. We've had a lot of minor or mild ailments that lead to more. Let's hope this isn't one, because shoulders can be worse than elbows. But again, and if it's the end for Eury, an amazing season, completely established himself as the best prospect in the Marlins system, as noted, one of the best prospects in all of minor leagues. And what a season if it's had to be the end. But you do raise an interesting point with the playoffs. But I'm sorry, he's not pitching in them if there's any hint. And then if he's shut down for 2 or 3 weeks, there's a time to ramp him up for the playoffs. So it's probably all said and done for Eury. And then just, obviously what this does for winter ball or something like the Arizona Fall League, anything like that, I think it raises red flags. So it's just something to watch and just hope he's fine. But great season, hat tip to Eury, and just hope speedy recovery. And again, that this was very precautionary, as they are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, the Marlins haven't said that this is it for Eury. He hasn't sort of officially been shut down. I guess it's just we're assuming, or we're thinking that might be the case, considering the pitching load at the moment, the sort of the innings threshold, and just the nature of pitching injuries. I mean, we've already seen Max Meyer go down with the Tommy John. Cody Poteet just had Tommy John surgery. So the Marlins have to be really, really careful with these pitching prospects, especially the high-end ones like Eury. In all likelihood, he wasn't going to make his MLB debut to start next season. He was probably, He's 19 years old right now. So 20 years old next year, probably going to start at the AAA level in Jacksonville. And then maybe by the end of the year, if he has an amazing season, he's with the big club. But even then, it could be, like a 2024 sort of ETA for Perez. But that Jacksonville team, just to kind of loop around to that club, because, Perez will probably be with Jacksonville next year, but that Jacksonville team is making a lot of noise right now. They themselves are pushing for a playoff spot. They're kind of jostling with a couple other clubs for the top of the International League East division. And we've seen a lot of their players sort of move on to the big club. And, we talked about a lot of those guys throughout the season. Obviously, Lewin Diaz, JJ Bleday had a monster game last night. We saw Charles LeBlanc. He's been one of the best Marlins hitters since his sort of promotion. We've seen a lot of guys have a great deal of success coming from Jacksonville. So this new crop of talent is sort of playing through with the Jumbo Shrimp. And we wanted to highlight a guy that actually Marlins fans have already seen this guy. I'm talking about Brian Miller. He's a left-handed hitting outfielder. He played 5 games with the Marlins in 2021, went 3 for 11 in that stint. Is playing with AAA Jacksonville right now, getting a ton of playing time as Peyton Burdick and Bleday have sort of vacated the outfield at the AAA level. He's hitting .282 with a .334 on base, a .425 slugging percentage, 5 homers, 9 doubles, 29 RBI. He's got some speed to him. He's got 7 triples this season and 18 stolen bases. He's 16 for his last 16 in stolen base attempts, and he's a very versatile defensive outfielder. We know that the Marlins place high value on defensive versatility. He is 26 years old. He came to the Marlins way back in 2017 as a competitive balance A draft pick, the number 36 pick overall in 2017. So he's a guy that's been with the system for a long time, but he seems kind of stuck at the AAA level right now. What do you have on Brian Miller, Joe?
Yeah, Miller is one of those really interesting guys because I think he's going to be playing in the big leagues in roles. He's your classic extra outfielder.
Yeah.
Your plays all 3 positions, pinch runner, not going to give you much power, but back to ball, career .283 minor league hitter, 1,860 career at bats. 137 career stolen bases. He's building quite the minor league resume. And, he just seems to be the forgotten player in the Marlins system. And I guess it's, you're looking for the Burdick profiles with more power. But I think this guy's a big leaguer and, one of those role players. And you just wonder if right now he's playing for value to be moved on, because he seems to be kind of lost in the shuffle. But he's a player, I think, that could have had value, at the big league level in that, like I said, that extra outfielder. Marlins are carrying Billy Hamilton. Just keep this in mind. And yes, but Brian Miller doesn't run like Billy Hamilton, but he runs pretty well. Yeah. So he's a fascinating guy. Like I said, like you said, the 2017 draft, I think he was in there with Trevor Rogers and Joe Dunan. Mm-hmm. Those were the first 3 picks that Miami had that year. And he's a guy I think could be headed elsewhere. He doesn't seem to have a future with the Marlins. But again, I think you have to identify roles. Not every player is an everyday player. Not every team has the same fits. And lefty hitter who, like I said, I thought he would have been given a little more chance, but he's a guy potentially in a trade, because you could always do that in the offseason, attach him to somebody or make a minor league trade. But again, he's a guy I think we'll be following as the Jacksonville season plays out. And I'm sure a lot of people on a lot of organizations are scouting players like Brian Miller. And another reason, and I know you're probably segueing over, but, Victor Mesa mm-hmm. could be falling into that type of position that Brian Miller has. Although I think Brian Miller is a better player, and Victor Mesa seems to be earmarked for that, because he has, yes, he can put the bat in the ball, but offers very little power, and is kind of moving up ranks without necessarily posting big numbers. But the Marlins, as we know, put an investment in Victor. We know his family history and legacy. And so those are 2 interesting guys that I'm paying attention to right now in Jacksonville.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to touch on Victor Mesa, we did talk about him. I think it was in our last episode because he had just received his promotion to Jacksonville. At this point, he's played 8 games in Jacksonville. He's now 6 for 23. So, obviously not setting the world on fire. He's got 2 RBIs, 553 OPS. He's a relatively light hitting, versatile defensive player. He fits the same profile that Brian Miller fits. Interestingly, he's a guy like Miller who has sort of played all over the outfield. And the Marlins seem to sort of want to do that with some of these guys, because we saw J.J. Bleday play all over the outfield prior to his promotion. We've seen Peyton Burdick play all over the outfield prior to his promotion. We know that Brian De La Cruz has also played multiple positions. But, these guys, Bleday, obviously, they want him to be an everyday player. And he seems to be sort of figuring it out on the fly, especially after what he did yesterday. Really, really impressive performance against the Phillies. But when you look at guys like Brian Miller, Brian De La Cruz, Peyton Burdick, now Victor Mesa, these are all guys that sort of all fit that 4th outfielder profile, guys that have speed. Some of them have a little bit of pop. They can
play. Some are lefty bats, some are righty bats.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but there's only space for maybe one of those guys on the
right.
big club, and then you maybe stash another one at the AAA level. But they're kind of loading up on some of these guys. And at AAA, we're seeing some of the other prospects also get reps in the outfield. Jesus Sanchez was demoted recently, and he's actually had a tough go in Jacksonville through his first 4 games. He finally registered his first hits with Jacksonville yesterday. He went 2 for 5 yesterday for the Jumbo Shrimp, but he struck out 3 times. He's only 2 for 14 in his first 4 games at the AAA level. So he's trying to work things out. That he's probably going to be in the lineup in Jacksonville every day to kind of figure those offensive issues out. And Gerard, he's been sort of up and down this season, but he's still there and he's still on the 40-man. So of all these names that we've mentioned, he could get another look. You bring up Billy Hamilton's name and you wonder, at this point, the Marlins have fallen out of it completely. And the schedule that they're facing here in August and into September is daunting, considering, they've got the Braves, they've got the Padres, they've got the Dodgers, they've got the Rays, and, the Phillies again, the Mets. It's just a gauntlet that they're going to go through here. So I mean, they're out of it. Why are we giving Billy Hamilton reps ahead of some of these other guys? It's a question, that we'll see sort of play out moving forward. But with Victor Mesa, he's probably not going to get a call, but he is probably going to get consistent playing time in Jacksonville. Brian Miller, though, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they decide to move him up and give him a look again, because it was just a glimpse last year, really, just those 5 games. Another guy playing at AAA that is new to the system. Talked about him last time. The Marlins traded for Jordan Groshans at the deadline, and he's in the lineup in Jacksonville. He's sort of bounced between shortstop and third base. He's 6 for 25 at this point. So he's still sort of getting his feet under him in Jacksonville. He's young, 21 years old, so, playing sort of above his head at the AAA level maybe. But there's another shortstop in the system who's also 21 years old, who's really sort of knocking on the door as well. And he might ultimately push Groshans over to third base, which is what some people expect. I am talking, of course, about Nasim Nunez, who sorry, my dogs are barking at the lawn guy, who of course showed up when we're starting our show. Nasim Nunez, 21 years old, switch hitting shortstop. He's the number 18 prospect in the Marlins system, according to MLB Pipeline. He was recently promoted to Double-A Pensacola with Single-A, High-A Beloit this year. He was hitting 247 with a 390 on base percentage, which is great. He only the 2 homers, but 11 doubles, 3 triples, 27 RBI. His 49 stolen bases led the Midwest League at the time of his promotion. He picked up his first stolen base at the Double-A level last night. So now he's up to 50 stolen bases this season. And that's kind of what he brings to the table. He's got an 81.6% stolen base rate in his minor league career. He's 111 for 136, which is impressive, incredible. He's an elite defender with Gold Glove potential, and he's definitely somebody that is probably going to push into the AAA level at some point next season. Probably not anybody that's going to make his Marlins debut next year, but definitely somebody that Marlins fans should keep an eye on. What do you have on Nasim Nunez?
Yeah, Nasim Nunez is one of those interesting prospects because he kind of, to believe in him, you got to kind of look at your eyes and intuition more than, Fangraphs and deep, metrics and analytics, because he's not going to wow you with power. He doesn't really have much. He's a switch hitter. I wonder, should I just make him a lefty hitter? I always wonder about that. If you're not a lead hitter, why are you switch hitting? But sometimes you mess a guy up more by taking one side away. But you just kind of have to believe that, for one, you have to recognize what you have. Because there are people I've talked to that look at him as just a really talented baseball player who does things over a course of a game to help you win. So if he's on a team, almost like when D. Gordon was on this team with Stanton, it's like you didn't need any power from D. Just try to get on base. Stanton, Ozuna, you have enough there. The Marlins can't have Groshans and him, like 2 guys from your left side of your infield not hitting any homers. You can't survive in the big leagues that way. But I like him a lot as a baseball player. So you're going to have to look at all he does, the intangibles he brings, which you have to believe in intangibles in terms of how he makes your team better, how he is a disruptive player when he gets on base, how he's instinctual, how he can play. He'll have to be a utility player. I'm not sure he's going to hit enough to be an everyday shortstop, but, people really question whether Miguel Rojas was going to hit enough. I look at guys like Nasim Nunez a little bit like I do with like Miggy Rowe. Because I remember when the Marlins got Miggy Rowe, strict utility player, questionable if he was going to be in the big leagues. Derek Dietrich was making the team over him. But then you saw the overall game, how Miggy added a lot more than just, yes, he didn't have the power, but the positional versatility, just the knowledge of the sport, being on the right place. Jose Devers kind of fits this kind of mold as well. That's maybe you're going to have to make a call between one of those two because they kind of fit the same mold. But I'm not giving up on Nasim Nunez. I think he has value, and I think he's somebody to keep an eye on. The on-base percentage is not going to be at the big leagues because he's not going to walk in the big leagues. They'll just say they'll throw it down the middle if they have to. And Juan Pierre always talked about that. He didn't walk because they're like, go ahead. What worst you going to do? Hit a double? Right. So they on 3-0, 3-1, they're grooving pitches to him. So you just keep that in mind because these numbers, but that doesn't mean he can't get on base at a decent enough clip to be a big leaguer in a role. But he's a guy. And again, I think I look at the sport a lot, Dave, and I try to convey, you look at roles, you have to say, this player's this. We tend to say, hey, we gave Jesus Sanchez 3 months. He didn't get it done. He played every day. He's done. Get him out of here. No, it's like, how do you use that player? Not everybody is an everyday player, but that doesn't mean you're not a 66% player. And it's how you're used. And that's where you want to talk away the Rays way. How come Harold Ramirez produced better there than here? It's how you use your players in your roster. Nasim Nunez fits that for me.
Yeah, he joins a really interesting lineup over there in Pensacola. As you mentioned Devers earlier, their lineup yesterday, Devers was the leadoff hitter and Nunez was batting second. And then Conine was right behind him batting third. Paul McIntosh, who we've talked about, is also on that team. He's currently on the 7-day IL, but that Pensacola team has some really, really interesting bats, and it's an interesting sort of offensive, mix that they have, and it'll be, something to watch as you mentioned, sort of monitoring his progression now that he's up at the AA level. Talking about everyday players and prospects becoming everyday players, and then actually just talking about AA as well. We saw quite the major league debut. We're going to transition away here from the Marlins for a moment. Of a major rivals prospect, talking about Vaughn Grisham of the Atlanta Braves. He was called up directly from the AA level, and he announced himself with authority at the major league level. He hit a homer and a stolen base in his debut. He became just the 8th player to have a homer and a stolen base in his MLB debut since 1985, which is an impressive accomplishment. Funnily enough, or funnily, I'm not sure is a word, but funny enough, I guess, is probably what I meant to say. Gerard Encarnacion also did that in his MLB debut this year. What do you have on Vaughn Grisham, Joe?
Vaughn Grisham, first of all, Florida kids. He went to Haggerty High School. He, as a freshman, was in the same lineup with Riley Green. So he's a former high school teammate of Riley Green, and both the Green and Grisham were freshmen at the time. A senior on that team was Ryan Mountcastle. So that team had 3 big leaguers on it, future big leaguers on it. And Vaughn, he's like 11th round pick, who's kind of, he had a projectable body, but was kind of raw, kind of little, not the purest, I guess I should say the most polished prospect, but he's emerged as the Braves' #1 prospect, again, Florida kid, and gets that call up. And what a thrill. He homers at Fenway Park in his major league debut.
It's like that home run too. It was great. It's funny. It'll be interesting to see how the Braves use. I mean, I know they called him up because they're having some injury issues in that middle infield specifically. I mean, Albies is out, but they have Dansby Swanson, who's their shortstop. And Swanson's going to be a free agent, and the Marlins have need at the shortstop position. Any chance that the Marlins go in on Dansby Swanson if the Braves decide Grisham is the shortstop of the future?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's go that way. They're going to spend $200 to $300 million on a shortstop, but that's a story for another day. I don't see it, but maybe Dansby wants to come save the day here in South Florida. But it's like these prospects are fun and good, and I think there's going to be another shortstop in the division that's going to be coming up. A player I've followed since the 19 draft, taken 2 picks after J.J. Bleday by the San Diego Padres, C.J. Abrams.
Yep.
And Green, of course, went 5th to Detroit. Abrams, 21 years old, part of the Juan Soto trade. sounds like he's coming up to Washington, which was only a matter of time. He had been up earlier in the year in San Diego because of Fernando Tatis Jr.'s injury, but 303 minor league hitter, 7 homers, 20 this year in AAA, 7 homers, 29 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, just a great hitter. Yeah. A guy the Marlins fans were going to see a lot of because now he's in the division. Your thoughts on CJ Abrams, and we're going to talk about another prospect that the Nationals just signed and what he did in his first pro debut. But are you looking forward to seeing CJ Abrams as much as I am?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's incredibly talented. He's a guy that shows versatility, can play shortstop, can play center field. He's a guy that actually I was kind of hoping that the Marlins would get in on, at the trade deadline. I feel like he would have been sort of a perfect piece for this group because he could have solved at least one of those issues that the Marlins had long term. But you mentioned his teammate, or probably teammate down the line, not teammate right now, who we've talked about. Mr. Green did this the other day. That was Elijah Green, and that video came from his father, Eric Green, former Miami Dolphins and NFL tight end. From his Twitter feed, that was a monster blast that Green connected on in his first pro game, I think it was. Yeah. And so, the Marlins have some pretty serious competition coming, not just now, like just down the line too. I mean, these guys are incredibly talented. What do you have on Green, Joe?
Yeah, as you know, I've always been a big Elijah Green fan. Last year I saw him play against Calvary Christian. Elijah Green, of course, went to IMG, taken 5th, 1 pick in front of the Marlins, who took Jacob Berry, and I really like the Jacob Berry pick by Miami. But Elijah Green, there's just that was his people know is a pro debut, his first game. Just he's 18 years old or whatever. Yeah. So what a thrill for him. There's the concern about the swing and miss in his game, but you could just see the tools just jump out at you. He may make a lot of people regret, marking him down. He has that type of ability. He also may, if he doesn't figure out, he also may be a huge disappointment, but I'm a believer in the talent and the player. And like you noted, proud moment for his dad to be right there and to capture it all. And but yeah, we'll kind of end on that note, on that high note. But yeah, a great podcast. We're going to roll this thing out until the end. And David, carry us out of here.
Yeah, as you said, we'll keep an eye on not only the Marlins prospects, but we'll keep an eye on some of the bigger names that are coming through Major League Baseball. And obviously, we'll take a close look at some of the guys that the Marlins may end up seeing on a regular basis in the not too distant future. Guys like CJ Abrams and Green and stuff like that. Vaughn Grisham, obviously. If there's anybody that you, viewer, want us to talk about in the future, you could drop us a comment here below the video, or you could tag us on social media. I'm at by DL Fernandez. You can grab Joe on Twitter at Joe Frisaro or at Man on 2ND. Obviously, like, subscribe, throw on the notifications. We come to you usually on Wednesdays, sometimes on Thursdays, depending on schedule. But we'll be here through the remainder of the baseball season and probably and hopefully beyond. If you want to help us out, you can follow that link down there, dugoutmugs.com/man on 2ND. You can get your hands on one of these awesome drinking vessels from the Dugout Mugs company. But yeah, that's all we have for you here today. Hopefully the Marlins can continue to roll out some of these younger prospects, guys that we're hoping to see a little bit more. Charles LeBlanc looks great. JJ Bleday looks great. Hopefully Lewin Diaz can get the bat going. And we'll keep an eye on everything that's going on in the Marlins system. So thanks for watching, everybody.